Please excuse. Well, good morning, dear colleagues, and welcome to the second day of EuroSDR workshop. In the next 15 minutes, I'd like to introduce you to the different areas of work of the SWISSTOPO image collection. More information on the image collection can be found on the SWISSTOPO website. SWISSTOPO has been documenting Switzerland's topographic development for around 175 years, preserving various geodata and making it available in the form of time series has resulted in a landscape memory of Switzerland, which traces all the changes and developments over a long period of time. Based on the documentation of past developments, it is possible to draw conclusions regarding the future development of our living space and changes in the natural environment. The image collection is part of several related collections. SWISSTOPO also holds an extensive map collection, a collection of working instruments, tools, and geological and geodetic collection items. In this presentation, I will only focus on the image collection. The analog collection contains more than 500,000 photographs taken over a period of around 100 years, in color, black and white, and infrared, on various photographic media, in different photographic formats, and with changing photographic techniques. The last analog photographs were taken in 2010. Within the collection, there are 3 different thematic collections: aerial images, terrestrial images, and technical photographs. Our photographic images of the landscape were primarily used to produce maps or to update national maps. Today, the photographs are used in many different ways. As a unique national cultural resource, the image collection allows us to observe, study, and document the development of settlements and landscapes in Switzerland over the decades, and is thus an important part, as I said, of Switzerland's landscape memory. SWISSTOPO has the legal mandate to preserve and manage the historical image documents and their contents and to make them accessible to the general public. In order to fulfill this mandate, the concept for the processing of the historical image collection has been developed in recent years, as well as a plan of measures for the realization of the project. So we started in 2008. The image collection will be made fully accessible to the public online. I will start with the largest of our collections, the aerial photographs. In the collection, there are mainly vertical images, excuse me, vertical images, but also a small number of oblique photographs. The collection period for the aerial photographs stretches from 1926 to 2010. After this time, the analog collection was completed. Since 2010, only digital image strips were created. Within the collection of aerial photographs, there are again sub-collections. These are aerial photographs as a basis for the various map series, as well as commissioned photographs taken in connection with thematic flights. The photos encompassed the entire country and were taken at regular intervals. The scale of the images usually varies between 1 to 20,000 and 1 to 30,000. They are available in black and white for a period from 1927 to 2003 and in color from 1998 to 2010. The physical collection includes black and white glass plate negatives, black and white and color and infrared plastic films, and more or less a double quantity of paper prints. And here are some examples of aerial photos. The first one is from 1936, and here an image from Zurich, image of Zurich from 1957. Here you see the Jungfrau region in 2005. Since 2010, SWISSTOPO has no longer produced analog individual images. These have been replaced by digital aerial image strips. After World War I and up to the beginning of the 1950s, much of the Alpine region was topographically surveyed using terrestrial photogrammetry. Here, SWISSTOPO topographers used the approximately 7,000 broadly distributed survey points, measured the position and altitude of each location with the aid of a phototheodolite, which is a combination of a surveying instrument and a camera, and captured photographic images on about 57,000 glass plates. Here, a terrestrial image from 1932. It's a view on the Moiri Glacier. And finally, let's look at the last thematic collection, the so-called technical images. Here you see the engineer de Rémy taking measurements at the Mont Salvant reservoir in 1921. The technical photographs are a separate photographic collection of high documentary value integrated into the image collection. The oldest pictures date back to 1882. The focus of the subject areas changed several times over the decades. Initially, mainly church and house towers, mountain peaks, pyramid and pole signals were photographed. Later also the employees of the Office of Topography and their working methods and tools. Here is one of the technical images. It shows the survey assistance during the Rhone Glacier survey of 1882. The original is a glass plate negative in the format 9:12. This picture shows the operation of the series aerial imaging camera in 1954. Because the survey aircraft could always fly higher as a result of technical progress, and consequently larger and larger areas were shown on the aerial photographs, the camera operator had to work with the oxygen mask until the introduction of pressurized cabins. And this is how you can imagine the image collection before treatment. A wide mix of media, techniques, materials and information. Notice also how the photographs were previously stored in the archives. These storage conditions are very bad for photographic documents. These types of packaging materials and the pollution accelerate the decay of the documents. So what is our job? We reorganize the collection and media and record them systematically. We process the information contained and make it accessible to the public. We also prepare the fragile photographic originals for long-term storage. Cataloging includes the collection of metadata and its management. A photographic image without the associated meta-information is of limited value to the user. Along with digitization, the cataloging and indexing of the contents of the collection ensure their availability and usability. Here on the picture you can see an example of the diverse source material on the collection that we are currently working on. In all these documents we find important meta-information about the images we are cataloging. And the images will be published on an ongoing basis so that in the future the entire digitized image collection will be accessible to the public online, easily and in the best possible quality. To make this possible, there is a need for innovative solutions tailored to this type of survey image for cataloging and distribution. Thanks to the close cooperation of specialists from different areas of SWISSTOPO, it is possible to develop such complex application within the Federal Office. So we collect metadata from the historical sources with acquisition tools developed specifically for the various collections inside the image collection into database solutions developed specifically for this purpose. The images are also geo-referenced, and we currently publish 1 to 2 images of a flight line on the crowdsourcing platform Snapshot. So experienced volunteers then locate these images, we adopt the information and use it to automatically locate the remaining images of the line. We then check the positioning and correct it if necessary. Age-related decay and frequent use threaten a large part of the precious originals. We preserve the original historical documents in order to be able to store them for the long term. SWISSTOPO is committed to preserving the originals in order to enable future generations to access the original information. This includes the cleaning and repackaging of each object in archive quality packaging material and subsequent storage in suitable repositories. All analog photographs are subject to a continuous process of decay from their date of manufacture. The nature, manner and speed with which the age-related deterioration processes take place are determined by the composition of the photographic materials, their processing, we saw this yesterday, and the storage conditions. The following pictures show damage that can occur if photographic materials are handled incorrectly. So these are pictures from our collection. We saw this yesterday. These are fingerprints. This is not from our collection yet. An important step in connection with long-term preservation was to initiate the inclusion of the collection in the list of cultural assets of national importance in Switzerland. This classification underlines the importance of our collection and its safe and long-term preservation. It gives us the necessary legal backing when, as is currently the case, there is talk of cutting off the power supply to the buildings of the federal administration and thus also the air conditioning of the cultural property rooms due to a possible power shortage. In the context of the preservation of SWISSTOPO's cultural heritage, we were able to build a storage room at an external location for our most sensitive items. The room is located in a former military defense facility deep inside one of Switzerland's mountains. The advantage of a cavern at such a location is, among other things, that the naturally prevailing climate is already very stable, without further measures. This in turn is a big advantage should the electrical systems such as air conditioning fail. On these pictures you can see a part of a corridor leading to the storage room and the door to the pre-chamber of the room. Inside this room the air conditioning system is located. In a location like this, it is also easier to create a stable, controlled artificial indoor climate as there are less external influences present. In these pictures you can see the devices for cooling, humidification and purification of the air. They are located, as mentioned, in an area outside the storage room. This is important in view of possible failures in the technical installations, such as short circuit, water leakage, and so on. And here you can see the entrance to the storage room and an interior view of the cavern. At this location we store our cellulose acetate and nitrate films, which have already been completely reconditioned, digitized and made accessible. It is therefore what we call in German a silent archive. The room is kept at a temperature of 5 degrees Celsius with a humidity of around 40%. The air is filtered and regularly exchanged to remove the harmful decomposition products of the film material. The climate is constantly monitored and immediate intervention is provided in the event of a system failure. Fortunately, we do dispose of a redundant system and we also have an emergency power generator, which is in these times a big advantage. Another important step in the context of preservation and accessibility is the digitization of all images, which is carried out in-house at SWISSTOPO. The images are scanned with the photogrammetric precision scanners. This is a picture of the old scanners. We do have newer ones, but I didn't have a photo of that. Yeah. To avoid data loss, the creation of 2 backup copies, their storage at a secure location, and the regular checking of the data quality of the copies is ensured. The aerial photographs and terrestrial images are published on the Federal Geodata Viewer and accessible online. Images can be accessed individually with associated metadata, full resolution image view, and other features. So a download function will be implemented soon. The terrestrial images and part of the aerial images, as I said before, are also accessible on the Snapshot platform. Snapshot is both a data viewer and a participatory georeferencing platform. The so-called technical photographs of the image collection are published on the memo-based platform, which is called Portal to the Audiovisual Heritage of Switzerland. The memo-based information portal currently enables searches in over 400,000 audiovisual documents from over 90 Swiss memory institutions. More holdings are being added all the time. Now I'm at the end of my presentation and I will hand over to my colleague Holger HEISIG. And I will be happy to answer any questions you may have at the end of my colleague's presentation.
As in real life, my work begins where Nicole's work has ended. So I will present how it's good to have the imagery, it's good to know them being preserved for a long time. It's great to have them digitized. It's better to make value-added products. Just to show you our area of interest, of course, is the Swiss national surface. Just to remind you, Switzerland is a small country, about 40,000 square kilometers with 8 million people, mainly living in the lowlands. But there's almost half of the country dominated by Alps, which makes it for photogrammetric purposes or applications especially challenging. Imagine that the average altitude of the country is 1,350 meters. There's lots of land cover like glaciers, lakes, bare rock, etc., which makes it difficult to determine ground reference. Nevertheless, the image acquisitions for national map updates, they started in 1926 with the SWISSTOPO flight service, and during those first 20 years it was only flown over the lowlands, and there was no stereo coverage, and the support material were glass plates. After Second World War II, they changed to panchromatic film, systematic full stereo acquisitions countrywide, including the Alps. Panchromatic film until 1998, where color film was introduced. And you see a little bit below, there's also the annual coverage shown, like they started with around 10% of the country, increasing it to nowadays about 1/3 of the country every year. And then we changed in 2005 to that digital ADS system. We have the national ortho image in color, or it started with the color film, so we have a live production, if you want, from 1998 on. But then we have those rich archives, and we retrospectively process them into a Swiss Image historic product, and which of course involves all the photogrammetric processes that are required: orientation, auto-rectification, and the mosaic, of course. All this has been treated already, this 1946 to 1998, and published, and currently we are working on those first generation glass plates between 26 and 46 for the orientation for the whole photogrammetric processing chain. This is just the overview of the processes. We have the originals well kept and digitized. Metadata central to all of us. That's why I put it in the center. And then there are those consecutive photogrammetric processes, orientation, DSM extraction, I will talk about. Metadata are central. This is why they are central not only for documentation, but in our case also because we read and write from the different processes. We update the information, for example, the orientation, etc. All those elements, it steers the process. The metadata base steers also the process, if you want. This is just not to go into details, but just to show it's georelational database. That means we have geometries, the polygons, the flight lines, the points, additional attribute tables for calibration, etc. So that's most important. The part I'm personally most concerned with is the orientation process. And we heard it yesterday. It can be difficult, and it requires quite some human resources to do, especially the ground control measurements on those historic images. We have implemented a highly automated photogrammetric workflow, which is based on this HUB software module we already heard a little yesterday about, and its software provider is Catalyst, which is maybe known formerly known as PCI geomatics, and it's not a structure from motion, but it's a real traditional photogrammetry inside. It's not a complete black box because the project files, etc., is written in ASCII, and even the scripts that run the process, it's a Python script, so you really, they are pretty traceable what it does and how it does. And what it does is the automation is, of course, automated fiducial detection, automated tie point generation, and what I haven't seen apart from here on the software is the automated matching of GCPs to a provided autoreference. So our autoreference is from 2015 or something. It's really a recent one that we have. And the software, it requires minimum metadata, like the approximate image positions, and approximate can mean something between 1, 3 or 4 kilometers. And it's good to have the focal length, but not much more. And the system, it generates abundant number of observations, tie points as GCPs, and those are filtered through iterative procedures of bundle block adjustment. If you are interested in the details, it's in this publication, which is available here. Just to show you an example, this is a very early, from our current production, like the 1930s. This is a typical block configuration. Typical block configuration means between 400 and 800 images for me. This is even multi-epoch, so it was like 2 complete coverages from 31 and 45, which are in this block. And we call it additional images, depicted in red here, to geometrically buffer the block. And of course, from that time, there's no calibration protocols, so we kind of empirically determined at least the position of the fiducial marks. And this is what the tie point generation can look like, or typically looks like. It can be, could be very dense. Maybe this is after the second generation. You see there's a hole in the middle that can be due to land cover, like a huge lake or something, or maybe to a... But if it's not a lake, you can complement just with a handful of manual tie point measurements and rerun the process, and you have the same density everywhere. And this are the ground control points. So you see again, it's abundant. It's abundant number of observations, and I never look at what has been matched. It's more a statistical approach. We know that those are non-precise measures, and we run bundle block adjustment. And then we take a look at the residuals of the ground control points and filter them based on those residuals. And the average accuracy in orientation we obtain through this process is about 1 meter in X and Y, and rather 2 meters in Z. What's maybe surprising at the moment, or at the beginning, is that the residuals of the GCPs can be much larger, is rather 3 to 5 meters. So I understand it this way. This is what you do in traditional photogrammetry. You work, you measure few GCPs as precise as possible, which should be as precise as possible. What we do is this. We have poor precision, but still you can obtain a good accuracy if you have a large number of observations. Next point is DSM extraction. It's not a product, but we calculate one. I calculated in the orientation process to validate the quality of the orientation. because then I do a difference with the reference DTM, and if the difference is low, the orientation cannot be bad. So this is just really just a scratch thing calculated on the pyramids. And what you see in white is that we have a difference of less than 2 meters to our reference. Just to remind you, this is acquisitions from 1950 without any calibration protocols. The black triangles are the images, the black lines are the flight lines. And what's green is, and red is changes or higher differences. And we've seen that already yesterday, or you may recognize this big structure here is the largest glacier in the Alps, the Ardèche Glacier. And of course, we have a huge difference, which can be used by glaciologists, or which glaciologists are interested in. Next is auto-rectification process. There's not much to say about because it's completely automated. So after the orientation process, we write the orientations to the database, and then, as I said, from the different processes, we read the orientation elements, internal and external orientation elements, to calculate our orthophoto. Just a remark here, it's based on a current or on a recent DTM, because we don't have a historic DTM as a product. Mosaicing, not much to say about. You all know AutoVista, automated scene line generation. For me here, just to mention that we did some quality assessment on the accuracy of a final product, which is, for this example from the 1980s, 1 meter, including 2 outliers, which are clearly on unstable terrain in the Alps. So if you remove them, it would be even a little bit better. A radiometric homogeneity, of course, is good, is important. And this is just to show you for this period, 1946 and 1998, the number of different mosaics you have for each tile, just in function of how often it has been acquired or flown for the national map updates. Of course, it's not the same everywhere, but the mean value here is close to 8. That means, for one example, for example, Zurich Airport, you can see for each year how it developed. And you can add another 10 or so images from the color mosaic, and you have quite a nice timeline. Dissemination, of course, is good to have products to make them. It's even better to disseminate or to bring it to the user. Big game changer, big milestone for us is that since last year, most federal data are open government data, which includes all our historic images and derived products. No license fees apply and no restrictions on use whatsoever. So every one who is interested needs currently to order those imagery through the customer service, but there's no license fee. And as Nicole already said, there's a download service planned. And on that website, you can query metadata and see full resolution images and mosaics. And the mosaics, they are already available as a WNTS. It's good to have data, it's good to have products, it's even better to have applications. I just want to highlight very shortly some nationwide applications. And one is here, the countrywide land use, land cover statistics, which are performed by the Federal Office for Statistics. It's called Arealstatistik, and on a point grid all over the country of 100 by 100 meter, each point's land use, land cover is determined. It's assigned into one of those 72 classes. You see here only the aggregate classes. And it's being produced on recent data, but also on 2 cycles on historic aerial images. And mostly, or for a big part, in 3D. And those time series allow for to track changes, of course. And this is just an aggregate. You see on the left side, for example, like in most other European countries, settlement area has grown. But the question is, at which cost or of which land cover class, for example? You can answer here easily that it's mainly agricultural areas that were used for new settlement areas. Another countrywide application is the calculation of digital surface model. We heard yesterday Mauro Marti tell everything much more detailed than I could or would, so no need to stand to rest there. This is just the third example I wanted to show, even though this workshop is archiving historical aerial images. We heard that we also have terrestrial images, stereoscopic terrestrial images. So the, as Nicole said, the positions from where the images have been taken are known, they are documented. So the external orientation of those images was known, or is known, and now there's been a study from glaciologists from the ETH Zurich who used tens of thousands of those images to produce an DSM covering the whole Swiss glaciers, the whole Swiss Alps, and they used it for the change detection to quantify the glacier melt. It's a very interesting paper, in case you're interested. To summarize, we do a systematic processing of historical aerial images at SWISSTOPO. There's also an upcycling aspect in this, because we can nowadays derive digital surface models much more precise with our digital technologies than ever could be imagined at the time the images have been acquired. We have a highly automated photogrammetric workflow implemented, and for us it's 5 to 10 times more efficient than the conventional approaches we used before, while it provides similar, if not better quality. We do this processing centralized at our premises, and we esteem to be economically sound because it avoids redundancies at the customer side, and it fosters the establishment of our production scale. All derived products are published through our national geodata portal, and important applications on national level are established. Implementation of OGD principles, we have already experienced that, increase the use and demand of historic air photos and derived products. With that, I would like to close.
Yes. We are from the Swedish Mapping, Cadastral and Land Registration Authority, LANTMATERIET. My name is Maria NORIN. I am one of 3 group managers in a function working with aerial images and elevation data.
And my name is KLITKOU, and I'm the production team leader for our production team working with digitizing analog aerial images of Sweden. And we're here to tell you about our work with actualizing history. In Sweden, at our authority, we have an archive with 1.2 million negative analog historical images of cut sheet film. Everything is basically from 1937 and onwards. In 1937, our authority got the assignment from the government to produce the national aerial photography map, and we have been doing our national assignment ever since. We don't only have our national assignment images in our archive, we also have a lot of ordered flights where other clients have ordered our services to perform flights for them, whether it be over a new road construction or a municipality or a forestry company or anything else. We do raw scanning of all our images, which means we don't do any pre-processing in the scanning procedure. We scan the data that there is. In the second image here, you can see one of the negatives, and we have a black strip of paper on the left-hand side of the image. This is the border to Norway, which is masked for confidentiality. We all, through the years, images have been marked and masked for confidentiality. You can mark any secret places or military intelligence with a marker pen or stuff like that. When we scan our images, we aim to preserve all data there is. So we clean all the images thoroughly, remove any confidentiality review on the images as we scan them. If there needs to be any confidentiality review done afterwards, it will be done digitally in another process by another function at our authority. We have 3 Leica DSW 700 scanners, which we scan all our 23 by 23 centimeter images. We also have a Delta scanner for our 30 by 30 negatives, which are older. We post-process all the images in an in-house created software called the Curve, where we can adjust images either one by one or strip by strip in brightness, contrast, or color. So you do the radiometric adjustment on the raw images to put them on our digital archive. When we scan the images, we scan them in 12 bits, but after they have been processed in the Curve, they are stored in 8 bits as a final image. We also store the raw data. We are 17 people working on a roster in our scanning facility, where every day is manned by 4 or 5 people driving 3 scanners and our cleaning stations. We don't only have our negatives in the archive, we also have detailed overviews over our strip. We have flight overview maps of basically our entire national assignment since 1937, and also these strip notes with the detailed metadata about weather conditions, camera, flight altitude, number of exposures, and so on. And all these have been already scanned and digitized and put into our digital archive. Our main goals for this project and for the archive is to create digital products and make the data available for further use. And we aim to finish this scanning project in 2028, when all the images are to be sent to the Swedish National Archive, the Riksarkivet, for final preservation in a mountain cabin bunker, as Switzerland also talked about earlier. All our images have been inventoried, and we have changed all our image folders and packages to new non-deteriorating folders to preserve the data. And this is a diagram that shows our inventory in the green bars and our scanning progress, our scanned images in the blue bars. We are currently scanning the year of 1989, as we are scanning all the images year by year. And we have a few years left until our completion in 2028. There are also some green bars in the early 40s, which are our 30 by 30 negatives, which are scanned county by county instead of year by year. We also handle a lot of metadata for the images. When the images are scanned, every image is given an approximate center coordinate in a WebGIS system, and all the flight metadata from the strip notes are also read and put into our database. We currently have a project ongoing with OCR reading of these flight notes and strip notes to put into the database. And this gives us very connected data where you have the image name, the strip note name, and the key in the database all connected, so you can always find the corresponding data for whatever you are looking for. Our georeferencing is a bit further ahead than our scanning procedure. We have georeferenced a lot of images all way past 1989 and into the early 2000s. This is because our national assignment is mostly georeferenced from these strip flight overview maps and not from the scanned exposure image itself. Even though they are already georeferenced from our maps, everything is also being controlled, where you have an operator looking at the image and comparing it to the center coordinate when we have done the georeferencing.
After we have scanned and image processed, we are also doing historical orthophotos in applications master from info. We are only doing this for the national images taken in the national assignments, not for ordered flights. When we do produce the orthophotos, we are using a height model with a 50-meter grid, and the historical orthophotos have a resolution of half a meter. In Sweden we have two layers of orthophotos, one 60s layer and one 75s layer, and the years the images are taken are for the 60s layer about 55 until 65. But in the northern Sweden, it's almost it's hard to take photos. So in the northern part of Sweden, we were using more recent taken images, and therefore, when we get to the 75s layer, which are images taken between 75 and 70 and 80, we are not going to complete the whole country, because then we should use the same images as in the 60s layer. And the 60s layer are ready for some years ago, and the 75 layer are almost ready. After completing our 75s layer, we are going to start doing annual historical orthophotos. The first year we start with is going to be 1985. And as you can see in the left image, we do not cover all the country within 1 year. But we are going to continue with all years that is possible between 1929 and 2006. From 2006 we have a fully digital production. When we complete with other years, we hope cover the country with several years. And this is the same procedure as our current national assignment. When we are doing this for 1985, in the left image are an area of Sweden with images taken in 1985. in the right image, we have completed with images taken in 1984 and 1986. When we are doing the block adjustment, we are completing with years nearby. But when doing the orthophotos, we are doing this year by year. In Sweden, we have a confidentiality review of images taken from 1950 and more recent. In this diagram, you can see our invented negatives, and the blue bars are the confidentiality reviewed images. Before 1950, we are not having to do this confidentiality review because the resolution is not too big, and the image is not so good that you can see any objects. In this spot, you can see our 1960s layer. This is our confidentiality reviewed from 60s layer, and these are from our 75 layer. The bar in the middle is 1967. In 1967, we have done all scanning, all image processing. All images are confidentiality reviewed. All strip notes are digital. We have all images georeferenced and metadata in database. And like 1967, which is all completed, we are going to do with all years before sending the images to the National Archive, Riksarkivet. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions about LANTMATERIET, you can look at our website or our social medias. If you have any questions later, you can email us. But feel free to ask any questions now.
Hello, my name is Malene, and my co-worker Annette is over here. Yes. We come from the Danish Agency for Data Supply and Infrastructure, and we are located in Copenhagen. This is just to see that we are under the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Utilities, and we are a part of the Danish Mapping Agency together with the Geodata Agency. So we are like split in two. And this is just to show our organization, and we are from the data bank department, and this is here we have our archive section. So that's why we are here. This is the agenda of the presentation. I would like just to tell about the journey we had from our physical archive and then to publish our images on our website. So I'll go through the scanning process, geoprocessing, metadata and APIs, and then just overall understanding our data. We have approximately 2,300 canisters with negative, and this we have estimated to around 400,000 aerial images. And we have some polyester-based film stored at our own basement at the agency, and then we have around 500 cans with nitrate-based films stored at a fortification, which is a part of the fortification around Copenhagen. And they are stored here because they can, at some decomposed rate, they can self-ignite if they are exposed to high temperatures. Or if they're very decomposed, they can self-ignite at about 38 degrees, I think. So, yes. And then we also have flight reports, one for each can, and we have some route maps, which is around 4,500. Our data covers both Denmark and Greenland. We have mostly scanned our Greenlandic images so far. And then we have these route maps for both Denmark and Greenland. Our oldest images are mostly oblique, and around after 1950s the images are mostly vertical. And this is just an example from Ilulissat in Greenland, an oblique image, and then from Bornholm, an island in Denmark, which is vertical. And this is a little about what we want to do with our data. Our aim is just to ensure easy access and distribution to the public, and then also ensure a proper future preservation for the physical cans, because we do not have the greatest storage facilities right now. So, and then we do all this to support research and public administration, and hopefully there's much more who can use these images. And then the scanning process. We had our scans done by external companies in 2 rounds, so 2 tenders was made, and one in 2015 and one in 2019. We have some special condition needed as we started scanning our nitrate-based films, so there was some strict rules on how to manage these nitrate films. But it ended with around 100,000 scanned images, and we choose to scan our oldest image from Greenland first to make sure that the decomposition rate of the films would not go further. So, and then we had all the flight reports scanned as well. And then all the route maps, we have them we scanned ourselves. I myself scanned a lot of them on this scanner here at our agency. We have also created a data model to manage our metadata. This is a very, what do you say? Simple model of it, yeah. And we have placed our aerial images as a part of our bigger collection with the historical maps. So as you can see, all our historical maps and images have all these attributes here, including some geometry. And then our aerial images have extra metadata for more information about camera and flight height and so on. Our route maps are placed under our other historical maps, so they do not have all these metadata about flight information. But what is important to say is that they both have this route ID, which is the ID, so you can see which route the images are from. Just a little more about the metadata. It was registered alongside the scanning by these external companies, and some of the metadata we registered ourselves as well for the route maps. And then the geoprocessing, our aerial images, they are not processed at all, they're just scanned, so they are not geoprocessed. But we have processed our route maps with a geometry, so they have like a footprint, and we did that so we can, on our website, we can have a search by map, so you can click on a map and find a route map from that. And this is just the examples of the footprints from Denmark and Greenland. And this is an example of a route map. You can see all the route lines where the flight have taken the images, and there are all the route IDs, which are this one, and then you can see some of the image numbers as well. And this is the same information you will find on the image. So if you just have an image, you cannot locate it without the route maps. So the registration of the metadata was very important, so you can link the two and find out where the image is from. This is just an example from Copenhagen with route lines and images. Yes. And then we developed 2 APIs for our historical maps and images. We have one made for the metadata search and one for showing the maps and images. And our website, HEISIG, is based on these 2 APIs. So, this is how our website looks like at the moment. You can see all the different kind of maps we have, and the aerial images are placed in this button here, and our route maps are placed under thematic maps. So if you click on this aerial images, you will get all our images shown. And then you can, out here at the left, you can specify your search by clicking on a specific route, flight mission, or a year, or an area. And then we have this search by map up here, so you can, this is not working for the flight, for the aerial images, but this is working for our route maps. And if you click upon an image, you will get to the image where you can see all the metadata, and you can download the image. So this is how far we are with our images. We have still a lot of improvements to do. We would like on our website to have a specialized viewer for our images, possibly with the possibility to like scroll through a whole flight route, and then also to have a more view processing of our images, possibly by some automated georeferencing or location of center coordinates for our images through image detection or artificial intelligence. We also have a service in our agency for our newer aerial images, this oblique viewer to show aerial images. So we also have thoughts about combining our historical images with these newer images, possibly if we had the resources to get all our images georeferenced. And this is information if you have questions.